Right, hello everyone. I'll just give it a few seconds or so just to let some more people join in before we kick off in earnest. Whilst we're waiting for people to join us, let's just have a quick look at some of the features of Zoom. Like most people in the UK and certainly around the world now are very familiar with Zoom, but let's just quickly do this in case you're not. So firstly, everybody should be on mute. At the bottom of the Zoom screen, you should find a control bar. On the left-hand side is the audio settings where you can select and test your speakers. And then in the middle of the bar, there's the chat, the raise hand, and the Q&A. I would ask if you've got any questions, and please do ask questions if you submit them through the Q&A rather than through the chat. And then we can answer them at the end, but please do, if a question pops into your head, ask it as we go through the webinar. If for whatever reason you need to leave the meeting, then leave meeting is in the bottom right. You can always rejoin using the link for the webinar, and it would be great that when the webinar ends, or if you have to leave, there is a link to a feedback form which won't take long to fill out, so it'd be great if you could just give your feedback on there. So firstly, welcome and thank you everyone for giving up your time today to listen to this important webinar. Obviously, I appreciate that unprecedented times, great uncertainty and concern for all. But you know, we're there to help our clients and non-clients as well, albeit obviously working remotely at the moment, and we're there to give whatever support we can through these times. And I certainly hope that you'll find our time together valuable. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ian Weir of Weir Associates. Our core purpose is quite simply just to make business owners' lives better. And hopefully after today's webinar, we'll have gone some way to make everyone's life here that little bit better by helping them decide what actions they need to take to get through the current situation with the least amount of damage as possible to themselves, their family, their team, and their business. So with that in mind, I'm here to share some practical things you can do to minimize the downside on your cash flow at this time. So before we get completely into it, I just want to share a thought for the day. When a recession does materialize, many experts agree that ready cash is the oxygen that every small business owner requires to survive. While of course cash flow can be very difficult in times like this, today I want to share with you some practical things you can do to preserve that cash flow. And one thing we all need to remember is that profitable businesses can and do go bust in times like these, and it's not due to a lack of profits, but due to a lack of cash. So I'd strongly encourage you to take some notes, and in particular write down any actions you're going to take after today's webinar. I can pretty much guarantee you that if you don't take notes or write down your actions, you'll forget them. And especially as we get the bank holiday tomorrow and the weekend coming up, even more important to take some notes so that you can remember them on Monday. So what we're going to cover. Firstly, I'm going to cover some mindsets that will help you get into the right mind to tackle any cash flow issues you're currently experiencing, both now and of course potentially in the future. We can then talk about debtor system and best practice in this area. And then we'll talk about what you need to do going forward from here to maximize your own cash flow. And I'll have a quick update on the current announcements of support from the government, including the new bounce back loans, of course. And then we'll talk about some actions you could take after the webinar, together with several options of how we can support you further, including details of our 4-week COVID continuity programme. And then, of course, at the end, we'll answer any questions that have been submitted via the Q&A. So let's get started. Required mindsets. So the thought of day, with the thought for the day in mind, that you should never take your eye off the cash flow. Before we talk about strategies you can adopt, I just want to talk about some mindsets we really need to get ourselves into. The first one I'll cover is ORBED. Then we'll talk about being empathetic, then how to approach your debtor management with some backbone and heart, and finally we'll talk about selling during these times. And remember an analogy that I use a lot at the moment of oxygen mask in time of an emergency. You need to put your own oxygen mask on first. If your business falls over, no one wins. So it's really important that you put your oxygen mask on first. So first mindset I want to share with you is probably the most powerful business model I've ever seen, called ORBED. And basically, in everyday life, but also in times of crisis especially, we have two choices about how we can respond. We can either act above or below the line. Below the line actions would go something along the lines of this. I'm going to blame someone else for bringing this virus into our country. I'm going to make some excuses why there's nothing we can do about it. Or I'm actually going to go into denial that there's even an issue, and in so doing put ourselves, our team and our business at great risk. Or we can act above the line. We can take ownership that we can and must do something to protect ourselves and our business, even if that was to mean closing our business, dare I say. We can recognise that we're accountable to our team, our clients, etc. At a time of great need. And then we can take responsibility for protecting ourselves, our team, our customers, our business, and making sure that everything's as protected as best as we can during these times. So the fundamental mindset here is that we have a choice. We can get into the victor mindset and not be a victim. So a victim below the line and a victor above the line. So if you want to be a victor, you can get in your boat and start rowing. Use your oar. Or if you want to be a victim, you can stay in your bed, duvet over your head, and wake up when all of this is over. So it's really important that we act and think like a victor during times like this, especially, and we should do anyway in our own businesses. So that's ORBED. Second one I want us to get into is being empathetic. Of course, it's not as simple as saying, right, I've got the oxygen mask on me, the customer has to pay me, or I'm not going to help. I've heard some horror stories of businesses who are stopping credit and ramping up their debt collection without any thought for how their customers are coping. And of course, that's noted in this webinar, I'm sure. So before we can work out the best way to keep the cash flow going, we need a framework. And this framework starts with empathy, which we define as the ability to see things from our customer's perspective and be prepared to do something about it. So hence the idea of giving customers options as to how they can pay you. So be empathetic. Ask your customers how they're coping. Ask how their business is going. When you're asking those questions, also, consider the loyalty that they've shown you over the last few months, years, etc. And, give your customers options as to how they can pay you. You know, work through this slide, these bullet points, use it as a framework. And if you've got a team, make sure your team are also working through this as a framework to ensure consistency, that when you're talking to your clients and customers, that, you know, the same approach is being used across them all. So the third one, having backbone and heart. As long as we're being empathetic and giving clients choices, we can then talk about how we're going to be paid. So really useful here is backbone and heart. So backbone is just sharing that you're running a business too, which is equally challenged. You know, every business is challenged in different ways at the moment. You know, every business needs its own cash flow too. So it's the backbone is getting that message across to your clients. But, you know, the hard part is being empathetic, listen to your customers, obviously understand their situation, you know, be flexible and considerate in your approach when you're dealing with them. You know, not all of them are going to be in the same situation as you. Some may be better, some may be worse. And then finally, I just wanted to talk about the selling mindset. I've been asked, you know, is it okay to sell? Should I be selling? Obviously, selling is different from marketing. You should always be marketing. Please don't stop marketing at times like this. But if you're going to sell during a crisis, you know, you can't be seen to just be product pushing. You have to make sure that your product or service is solving a problem for your customers. And obviously you need to make sure that you're going to get paid for that work. There's no point that even if you're solving a problem for them, if they haven't got the ability to pay you now or in the future, then, you know, at the end of the day, we need the cash. So the spin cycle, it's a line of questions, starting with situation questions, then moving to problem questions. Now I wanted to have a little bit of fun with this. So just a bit of a fun example. Let's say you're a hairdresser at the moment. So to understand the situation that your clients are in, you might ask questions like, you know, how are you coping with being at home right now? Are you spending a lot of time on FaceTime or other sort of video calls with your friends and family? So then once you understand the situation, then, you know, you can start with problem questions. You know, how do you feel at the moment? You know, is every day starting to feel like a bad hair day? You know, is it getting a bit like Groundhog Day at the moment? And then you can start introducing, you know, impact questions. You know, how do you think you're going to be feeling in a month from now? You know, is this lockdown going to end? You know, if it doesn't end, you know, what impact do you think that would have on you? And then next steps, you know, you could say, you know, can't be certain when this is all over. Remember, it's a hairdresser, but, you know, could we put you in for a full colour and cut in 3 weeks' time, when hopefully we'll be opening up again? You know, this is just a fun example, but, you know, hopefully you can see the line of questions, the spin cycle. You know, finding out the situation, the problems, the impact that those problems will have, and then meeting that person's need. You know, hopefully making them feel a little bit better. But what's really important here is that it is, you know, okay to sell in times like this, in times of crisis, as long as you're linking your offering as a way of solving a current problem for your customers. So please do not shy away from selling if you've got something to sell. So now we've talked about some mindsets that we all really need to have. We can talk more specifically about debtors and how you deal with them in these current times. Firstly, I'll take a look at best practice, then I'll share a guide and some scripts that we've developed, and then I'll talk some more about credit control processes. So best practice, essentially nothing should change. Just, you know, be more empathetic, dial up your empathy, make sure you're understanding your clients and your customers' situations. You know, remember, not all of your customers are at great risk at the moment, and COVID-19 should not give them an excuse not to pay you if they're in that boat. But only by engaging with your customers around each of their particular circumstances at this time, you know, are you going to be able to understand their situation. And then once you understand that situation, you can then start tweaking your process just for the customers, you know, who are going to struggle to pay you. But remember, at the end of the day, if you've done the work or supplied the product, you're running a business, and you do need to get paid at some point. So just dial up that empathy. Paperless systems, you know, hopefully everybody's using paperless systems. I still hear of people that aren't. You know, if you're not, it needs to be, you know, really one of your top priorities. Lots of cloud-based systems out there. We use Xero, and that can just email all your invoices, statements, even you can automate your credit control process through there straight to your customers, so that they know exactly how much to pay you and how to pay you. And then for the credit control, you know, best practice here is that you've got great guidance notes for the team members, if you've got team members responsible for your credit control and any of the debt collection. So I'm talking about things like flow charts, scripts, templates, just so that you get consistency out there with all your customers, that they're being dealt with in the same way. And we've put together a package on this free for you if you want to have that. Now, many of the problems with debtors come about because we've not put great systems in place around giving credit in the first place, or even taking them on as a customer or a client. But I'll talk about credit checks and outsourcing shortly. But first, I just wanted to share with you quickly the credit management guide and call scripts that I've put together. So if you just bear with me, I'll just quickly get that up just so that you can have a quick look at that. So hopefully you can all see on your screen at the moment the credit management guide. So there's a quick overview in there. We talk about terms of trade, you know, delivery, installation, liabilities, exactly what everybody needs to do. Then billing, you know, how are you going to get billed, also payment, you know, payment terms, etc. Any automation and stuff. Then obviously once you have sent out your invoices, your debtor management system, you know, how are you going to follow up your debtors, what your process is, how regularly you're going to do it, what time of day, etc., etc. And then as part of that, we've also got some call scripts in here. So, you know, just some simple sentences, how you can introduce yourself, what to say if they say yes, what to say if they, you know, say no about the debt being owed, etc. If you need to leave messages, what sort of messages those could be. So we're making these available to anybody who comes to the webinars, and to get them, all you have to do is leave us your feedback at the end. So that's the credit management guide and the call scripts. So I just really wanted to quickly show them to you. So when it comes to credit control, it's important to remember that it's not just about following up your debtors, as a lot of people think it is. It's a complete system for when you take a customer on through until they pay you, until they're no longer a debtor. As sort of alluded to, mentioned previously, I'd recommend that you outsource your credit control management. And I not only believe that it's best practice, but as well as that, it's going to free up your time immensely. But it's essential that you build a relationship with your chosen credit management provider so that they can understand, your core values, if you've got core values, your style of communication and the sort of language that you use, how you want your customers treated. It's really important to, make them aware of that. But, having said that, outsourcing we would view as best practice in this area, it can't be used at the ambulance at the bottom of a cliff. So what I mean by that is you can't just suddenly outsource credit management for customers, who are going to really struggle during these times, because if you do, that will cause you brand damage, and potentially the credit controller some damage, and not to mention probably waste a lot of time and money on both parties. So that's why we developed the call scripts and the guide for you to use, which I just showed you. And our cash flow management coaching is also a great way to drill down even further to make sure you've got the best systems in place to free up your time and also your cash flow. Part of your credit control process are credit checks. Remember, you don't want to inherit other firms' non-paying customers. Even in the current climate, there's no point in spending time, energy, taking on clients and customers who ultimately, can't pay you. So credit checking really should be a standard part of any onboarding process. Some examples here: Credit Safe, Equifax, Endall, Citago, plenty more out there. But here's just a selection. By doing credit checks, it also allows for conversations to be had and decisions to be taken before a new customer is even taken on. So what I'm talking about here is, things like, well, what credit limit should you give them? What payment terms are you going to offer them? Are you going to ask for cash up front, cash and delivery? Are you going to insist that they pay by direct debit? You give them 7 days, 30 days, 60 days, all things like that. At the end of the day, you need to make sure that you are going to get paid for the products and services that you provide. So, lessons we can take into the future. We've talked about best practice with your debtors and how you can avoid working for people who can't pay you. Now it's time to talk about what you need to do going forward from here to maximise your own cash flow. Now, some of these concepts people may have heard before, especially if you've been to some of our business continuity planning webinars. But please make some notes and actions you should take now, but also, for the future. So firstly, I'm going to look at a quick example explaining how to calculate your cash conversion cycle and the impact that shortening that could have on the cash in your bank account. We'll take a look at the 101 cycle, which links the cash invested to the profits generated, to then the cash generated, and then to drawings and reinvestment. We'll look at the 7 causes of poor cash flow. Then we'll take a look at getting some quick wins, quick runs on the board, and then some assistance you might be able to get from your bank or other financiers. And then we'll also do a quick recap of current government support on offer at the moment. So one of the most important ways to improve your business is to shorten the cash conversion cycle. In other words, get your cash in the door quicker. So what's critical at times of crisis is that all businesses speed up their cash conversion cycle so that the economy keeps working and the money keeps going around the system. You know, paying suppliers more slowly just creates problems for other businesses, you know, who most likely are suffering just as much as you. So if you can pay promptly, you know, and just keep it going, it's great. So let's take a look at a quick example. This is an example of a wholesaler. You know, if you're in a service company, then, you know, when I talk about stock, just think of your WIP, your work in progress, and you know, the payment of stock would be your payroll. So in this example, a wholesaler buys stock from suppliers, and on average has to pay those suppliers 45 days after buying the stock. Now, the stock doesn't sell the moment it comes into the warehouse. Some of it sells quickly, some of it doesn't, some of it takes longer, and eventually, you know, some of that stock has to be discounted or written off. But on average, that stock is sat in the warehouse for 60 days. Now, when the stock's sold, credit terms are provided to customers, but you know, a number of those customers aren't observing those credit terms. And on average, it's taking the company 60 days for customers to pay them. So with that information, we can now calculate the cash conversion cycle. So we've got an average stock holding of 60 days, and then it takes a further 60 days once we've sold that stock to get paid on average. So that's 120 days. But we've got 45 days credit from the suppliers. So if we take the 45 away from the 120, we get 75 days. So that's how long the cash conversion cycle is. You know, so in difficult times like this, we need to ensure that we have a plan in place to shorten this cash conversion cycle. You know, and this is certainly a process we'd recommend you do as part of any business continuity plan that you're doing at the moment. And if you're interested, you know, using the numbers from your most recent management accounts, we can work out the above numbers and calculate your cash conversion cycle for you. And then from there, we can discuss with you how we could possibly work together to shorten the cash conversion cycle and free up some more cash in your business. I suppose just to put this, you know, into context, if there was a business with a £500,000 turnover and its current debtors were £50,000, a 10-day reduction in the cash conversion cycle would be worth nearly £14,000 to that business, you know, and I'm sure everybody would agree that that sort of cash anybody could really do with right now. So obviously strongly recommend a review of your cash conversion cycle as part of your current business continuity plan or forecast to make sure that you're freeing up as much cash as possible. So another area to focus to improve your cash flow needs to be on your business 101 cycle. You know, as we always tell business owners, there's a massive difference between profit and cash. At the end of the day, profit's what you pay tax on. Cash, as I said earlier, oxygen that your business needs to survive. Without oxygen, you know, businesses die. Without cash, businesses die. So what's important here is that as well as improving your cash conversion cycle, you maximise your profit and at the same time finance your business correctly. So let's just quickly walk through this business 101 cycle. So starting at the top as an owner, you introduce cash into the business to buy assets. That could also be employ people. You know, you might borrow cash to employ those people or buy the assets. But those assets or people are then used to generate profits. And there are several ways to increase the profit. You know, you can improve your revenue or sales. Obviously, it can be very difficult and challenging in times like this, but it still is possible. In actual fact, now is a good time to be looking closely at potential new revenue streams, revenue lines within your business, potential new customers, maybe, a pivot in your sales strategy, but also look at what you can do to avoid losing any existing customers. Other ways to increase profit, at the same time, ought to be looking at how you can improve margins, whether that's via efficiency gains in your processes, whether it's better purchasing, reductions in errors and wastage, or simply, discontinuing with products or services that have a poor margin. And then obviously, the last way to sort of improve your profit is to trim overhead expenses, and if you haven't already been through all your outgoings, I'd strongly urge you to do that this afternoon, later today, or over the weekend. It doesn't take long, but just review everything that's going out of your business at the moment. Now, once you've derived your profit, you need to turn that into cash. And like I said, profitable businesses can and do go bust at times like this. You need to be looking at how you can maximize your cash flow using strategies to get paid quicker, reduce your stock or your work in progress, or, by negotiating better payment terms with suppliers. You also need to be very careful about your reordering process around stock. Can you operate with less stock, or are there items that are likely to be in short supply? So should you be buying more of them and stockpiling a bit for your business? But remember, now is not a time to be slow or lenient on any debt collection. We need to keep the money spinning, but obviously when you are chasing any debts, do it with empathy. When you took on that client, if you've done your onboarding process correctly, you'll have an understanding of their credit, etc. So, do it with empathy. Obviously, other areas to help you improve your cash flow: better terms with your financiers. Can you go interest only, for example, on some of your loans? But I'll cover more on finance shortly. And likewise, there are many tax concessions available right now, so you'll want to make sure that you can access them. But again, I'll go through that shortly. So once the business has generated the cash from its activities, it then either gets taken out of the business as drawings or dividends if you're a limited company, or reinvested to start the cycle again. At this point, I just mentioned here that, like I said earlier, as well as going through all your business overheads, hopefully everybody has also gone through the personal outgoings, and I'd urge you to keep doing that regularly, because as the less those are, then the less the business has to provide you. So very much interlinked. So that's the business 101 cycle. So the 7 causes of poor cash flow. So your accounts receivable process. So this is your whole billing and collections process, which we've talked about. And this actually starts, before you even raise an invoice, like I've sort of said, your whole onboarding process, including your terms and conditions. Second cause, your accounts payable process. So who can order what in your business, what payment terms are acceptable to you from your suppliers, whether you take early payment discounts when they're offered or not from the suppliers. That's what we're talking about there. Third cause, inventory and WIP process. So, what's your stock level process? What's your stock holding process? What's your reordering process? How often you review and bill your WIP if you're in a service industry. Number 4, inappropriate debt and capital structure. Does your business require more investment? Does it need more capital? Have you got assets financed, or have you bought them outright? Have you got assets in your business that you could refinance at the moment? And if you do have them financed, are they financed correctly? Is the length of the loan secured on that machinery too long or too short? Other things you can do here, interest rates, look at refinancing, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Fifth one, overheads, too high. Have you got the right people in the right roles? Have you reviewed your overheads in the last 12 months? It really is incredible when I say to some people, just sit down and look at your overheads and see what you're actually spending in your business. And I can bet you that everybody finds something in there that they think, well, I actually haven't used that, and it's very easy to take it out and save some money. Sixth cause of poor cash flow, margins. They're too low. Are you doing a lot of rework on your WIP? That applies to service companies and manufacturing companies. If mistakes are being made, then it obviously takes time to go back and correct those mistakes, which is a cost and will ultimately affect the margin that you're making out of that product or service. Have you reviewed your suppliers' prices recently if you're more on a product type of business? A 1 or 2% decrease in the supplier's price could have quite an impact on your bottom line. And then finally, ultimately it could be that your sales are too low to support the overheads that you're trying to run your business on. So what's the best way to increase your sales? That's what you need to start asking yourself. At the moment, that could just be customer retention. How am I going to keep the customers that I've got? Other things that you can do, we've all heard these terms: upselling, cross-selling, but also increase frequency of sales, increase basket size, try and get people to commit to a meeting from a meeting, try and offer them something that if they place another order in a month's time, then you'll maybe give them a discount just to increase that frequency. We've got extensive resources we can share with you on this as part of our cash flow management coaching services, which will enable you to implement the ideas quickly and effectively, and that involves a full review of each of the 7 causes of poor cash flow, so that together we can make a plan and free up as much cash as possible for you in your business. So how do we pull all this together in a meaningful way in our current climate and also into the future, very importantly? So outsource credit management where you can. I just say be careful here though, as if you suddenly enlist the services of a credit controller or debt collector with customers who are highly unlikely to be able to pay you, then you do risk damage to your brand. So I would strongly suggest that you use them for your customers should be able to pay during these times, but don't let those customers use the current crisis as an excuse not to pay. If you don't currently use an outsourced credit controller, then it's certainly something that I would recommend that you implement as part of a long-term commitment to your overall credit management strategy. But for those customers who can't pay you, then at the moment you're going to need to deal with them. But remember the points we made earlier about being empathetic with those customers, and use the guide and the scripts that we've shown you and that we will freely give you. Revise terms of trade of your terms of trade in your proposals. Make sure you don't perpetuate poor practice into the future. Again, we get plenty of ideas around this that we can share with you in a one-to-one basis as part of any cash flow management coaching. And the strategies you adopt here, need to be tailored to your particular business as well. And don't forget, remember to look at your billing process. Get customers onto repeating or automated invoicing where you can, so that you're never slow in getting your invoices out. Consider if it's possible to create contracts with your clients with more regular invoicing, whether that's a deposit and acceptance of a proposal or an interim invoice or progress payment, if appropriate. And obviously, if you've got additional or out of scope work, make sure you communicate that early and get an acceptance from your customer, to basically avoid a complaint or an invoice query or any dispute, after the work or goods have been delivered. Also check that you have revised your price list to ensure that margins you are expecting are being preserved. If you've got the time at the moment, great way to do this, just go back in the last few jobs that you've done and see what costs were involved, and make sure that you are generating the margins that you expected when you last quoted for that work. And likewise, if you're in, say, retail or hospitality, then if you've got some time at the moment, then review your margins and your pricing on the products that you're selling. And now, if you've got some time in your hand, I would strongly recommend looking at cloud-based technology, especially automation, which will help to free up your time and ultimately your cash flow. Things, as I've said before, repeating invoices, and consider also how you can move your proposal or quoting process to a paperless or online option. Just automating it, making it far quicker and slicker. And last but no means, least, take a look at your management controls and procedures about spending and invoicing. So, for example, set limits around what stock or products can be ordered. Consider how you can reduce your levels of stock or improve efficiency in any of your operations. Whatever you do, just don't keep working for customers who don't pay, because at the end of the day, you're running a business right now. You need to reduce your risk wherever you can. So, bank assistance, often one of the highest overheads in a business can be interest costs to its financiers. Now, if you take that interest and then add on the capital repayments, the principal repayments, that can be a massive drain on a business's cash. So here's a list of ways that the bank or your finance partners might be able to, help you. So, temporary overdraft facilities, you may be able to approach your bank and get that in place. You may be able to get some extended trade credit. Like I said earlier, asset financing. If you have assets in your business that aren't on financing, maybe now's the time to kind of look at those assets and think, should I refinance them? Should I put them on finance to get some cash into the business, knowing that those assets will generate the profit to pay that loan off over the time. Loan repayment holidays, deferment of repayments, or interest only terms, all things that you can approach your bank and your current finance houses to see if they're open to extending any of these to you. Extension of term lending periods. So have you got a 2-year loan, which maybe you could convert to a 3, 4, or 5-year loan, which will reduce the monthly cash outgoing on that. Then both personally and if you're in the lettings business, short-term mortgage holidays being offered, 3-month mortgage holidays, some assistance there. And then also business credit card options. This is a really quick win if you haven't got one. Things you can put on a business credit card, just put it on a business credit card, pay it off every month, but it'll just stretch that cash out a little bit more. You know, so certainly part of your cash flow improvement or any business continuity plan should involve a discussion with your bank or financiers about how they can help you. But before you go to the bank, you know, we're happy to discuss with you best options for you to sort of potentially look at there. Just quickly go through the government support and tax considerations at the moment. You know, so VAT payments. It's the VAT payment, not the VAT return. So basically, if you've got a VAT payment due between now and the 30th of June, you can defer that until the 31st of March next year. You don't have to. You're more than welcome to pay it. Then there's the much talked about the coronavirus job retention scheme, furloughed workers. So the important thing here is that the worker has to be furloughed for 3 weeks, and they are not allowed to do any work whatsoever for the company. They can work for other people, but that depends on the employment contract. And if you're a sole director, the only things you're allowed to carry out are your statutory duties. You're not allowed to provide services to or for your company, and you're certainly not allowed to do any revenue generation. And then we've got the much talked about CBILS, Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme. This has partly been replaced by the bounce back loans, which I'll come on to, which were introduced because the CBILS wasn't really working that well. These are generally for larger companies, and they're interest-free loans for the first 12 months, but there are capital repayments due in the first 12 months on some of them. So these are generally being offered in the region of up to 2 times the annual wage bill, or 25% of turnover. Then we've got business rate grants, which have been coming through. There are still some businesses which haven't received them, some businesses which probably may think that they're not eligible. But if you haven't received a business grant, or you don't think you're eligible, I would still encourage you to investigate it, talk to the local authority, because to have £10,000, £25,000 hit your business at the moment would be a great help, I'm sure. And the government have also announced further funding, further discretionary funding to local authorities to help businesses that have maybe fallen through the cracks, and to help them through the crisis. The self-employed income support scheme. So this is up to 80% of average monthly trading profit, but it's capped at £2,500 for 3 months, and this is going to be paid in June. Now, HMRC will contact eligible people directly, and eligible people are those with trading profit less than 50,000 in the tax year 18-19, or averaged less than 50,000 for the 3 tax years starting in 16-17 up to 18-19 are eligible. Now, if you have a tax agent, they cannot apply for this on your behalf. You have to have your own HMRC login, and you will have to apply for it yourself. Somebody I know has asked HMRC if agents will be allowed to apply, and they have been point blank told no. So there we go. There's increase in working tax credits and universal tax credits, £20 a week, and then some changes around statutory sick pay, basically being available from day one as an employer, but also the employers are allowed to claim back 2 weeks of SSP, which in normal course of business they haven't. Then we've got the Futures Fund and Innovate grants. These were announced a couple of weeks ago. So there's a £500 million future fund, which is created in partnership with the British Business Bank. Basically, the UK government is going to provide 250 million, and eligible businesses will be able to access loans between 125,000 and 5 million, but these have to be matched by private investors. And to be eligible, businesses must have raised at least £250,000 from private third-party investors in the last 5 years. So that's the Futures Fund, and then they've also announced a further 750 million of support for research and development, intensive small and medium-sized businesses, and that's going to be made available through Innovate UK's grants and loan schemes. And then I suppose the most recent one, the bounce back loans, which went live on Monday. Lots of people who applied for CBILS and weren't getting them now applying for these bounce back loans, and certainly from what I'm hearing, they are getting into people's bank accounts quickly. So bounce back loans, basically between £2,000 and £50,000. They're 100% government backed. There's no repayments in the first year, so that's no interest or no capital repayment in the first year. It's basically equivalent to taking out a loan and having a first year holiday. The interest in the first year is covered by the government, which is obviously good news. The terms of these loans up to 6 years, and then the size of the loan that you would be eligible for. It's the lower of 50,000 or 25% of your 2019 turnover. Now, if you don't know what your turnover was for 2019, then most applications are allowing you to estimate that. And I can only imagine that they will then review, the bank will then review that estimate against what they have seen come into your account over 2019, and then they will make a judgment as to whether that is a reasonable estimate. It's a simple online application. It's certainly nowhere near as involved as the CBILS application is, and the money can be in your bank account within hours of approval. I've heard it being as short as 3 or 4 hours. Just a couple of, I suppose, points to mention here. Self-employed can apply. At the end of the day, you're a business, but they do stress that these loans are not to be used for personal purposes, and you will have to tick a box to say that it will not be used for personal purposes. So bounce back loans, yes, you know, they seem to be getting the money out to businesses. Now, one thing that can be done, if you have received a CBILS loan and it's for £50,000 or less, you can convert that into a bounce back loan, but you need to do that before the 4th of November this year. I have no idea how long these bounce back loans are going to be available for, because nobody knows how long the crisis is going to go on for, but perhaps the government saying that you have until the 4th of November to convert CBILS loan to a bounce back loan maybe gives some indication as to how long they may be around for. So I've set out for you some mindsets you need to have in the difficult times. So Orbed, you know, jump in a boat, start rowing, take ownership, be accountable, take responsibility, be empathetic, have a backbone, but have a heart around your debt collection, you know, and avoid shying away from selling. You know, if you've got a product or service that solves a problem, then, you know, start solving those problems. I've shared best practice about credit control and debtor collection, and showed you, you know, the guide and the scripts that I'm more than happy to send out to you. We've covered how to free up as much cash as possible by looking closely at cash conversion cycle, the business 101 model. And then we also looked at the 7 causes of poor cash flow and how you can get runs on the board quickly to improve cash flow, including what support is available from the bank. And we've shared in general terms the support that's available from the government and other sources. So now it's essential that you decide what you are going to do. As I've said before, clearly doing nothing, is just not an option. Now's the time to put the oxygen mask on yourself, and make a plan to get through this period. Even if that plan involves closing your business, you're far better off making that decision sooner rather than later to preserve any cash that's in there that you can. Part of that plan is to surround yourself with experts, and we are here to help you. But remember, focus on what you can do. We've developed a guide to the credit control and some detailed scripts for debtor management that, like I said, you can have at no cost from us. Just remember to leave your feedback at the end of the webinar and we'll email those across to you. So now I just want to share with you how we can help you if you wanted us to. So as I said before, we want to and we can help people. With all of our clients, our recommended strategy has been to complete a business continuity plan, and many are well on the way with doing this, and we've received some fantastic feedback, about how helpful they've found this process. If you haven't done a continuity plan yet, now is the time to do this, as it will form a great, foundation from which you can then build your cash flow improvement strategy. We've got 3 options for business continuity plan. All of these options have been reduced by 50% of our normal fees, as obviously we appreciate can be difficult to commit to spending at any time of crisis. So, but through a combination of continuity planning, forecasting, and cash flow management, we'd expect the cash flow benefits to be greater than any of our fees. But more importantly, it's about helping you, as quickly as possible. So the first option here is to meet with us online weekly for between 60 to 90 minutes a week for 4 weeks. Firstly, review and finalise your business continuity plan, and then it's to put it in action. So this will give you peace of mind that you've got an action plan in place, that you're maximising all the support options available to you, and that you know your current financial situation and how you're going to manage through this crisis. One of the biggest causes of failure in business is ultimately failure to implement. And by meeting regularly over 4 weeks, we'll make sure you stay on track with implementing your agreed action plan. And the fee for this 4-week service, which we've reduced by 50%, is £997 plus VAT. Second option is that we share the plan template and guide with you so that you can complete the first draft of the plan on your own. And then we can have an online meeting with you for between 60 and 90 minutes to finalise that plan. And this would obviously suit people who feel comfortable preparing plans themselves and obviously aren't inundated with other things to do right now. The risk we see with this approach is that with everything else going on right now, you might not get around to doing that plan. But the fee for carrying out your continuity plan review meeting with you is £175 plus VAT, which once again, we've reduced by 50% of our normal fee. Third option is that we share the plan and the business continuity plan and template guide with you, and you do the work yourself. Obviously our concern with that is that whilst it's free, you may miss out on opportunities to maximise tax and other entitlements and cash flow. There may be opportunities to improve your cash flow that we can identify if we were to work together on other options. So that's our business continuity plan. And then we have 3 options for your cash flow forecast. So if you've already done your business continuity plan, we'd certainly recommend that you work with us to complete a cash flow forecast if you haven't already done so. Many businesses are currently doing cash flow forecasts for the first time. Basically, as they've had to do them as a basis to support their finance application to the bank. But of course, as business owners, we should act like a bank anyway, in that we have to advance money to our business, and we need to make sure that it will get repaid. And by preparing a cash flow forecast together, we can share with you many ideas to improve your cash flow during these times. A combination of finance, government and tax assistance and cash flow improvement tactics are really needed here. And the fee for our cash flow forecast service, including a 1-hour review meeting, is £645 plus VAT, which again has been reduced by 50%. Preparing a cash flow forecast is the step that identifies where the improvements can be made. Having a cash flow management coaching session will help us to show you how to implement those ideas from that forecast. Just consider it as an opportunity for us to show you the full extent of what is possible in your business. And all we'd be asking for here is for you to commit to an initial session, one session. And the fee for that initial session is £197 plus VAT, which again, we've reduced by 50%. Then the third option for the cash flow is that we've got a basic Excel cash flow model where you can do the cash flow yourself, which we're happy to send to you. Our concern obviously with this approach is that whilst it's free, you may miss out on opportunities to improve the cash flow that we could identify if we work together under one of the other options. So those are the options of how we can help you if you wish. Now, has anybody got any questions? Have we got any questions? Okay, we've just got one question at the moment. Let's have a look. Can I pay off other debts with a bounce back loan? Yes, basically, this is certainly something that a lot of our clients have been asking. But you just need to make sure that obviously it's not personal debts. So examples we've had is people they've taken out a loan for a commercial vehicle. But the terms of the bounce back loan are far better than the terms of their current loan on the commercial vehicle. So they've paid off the commercial vehicle. They've obviously made themselves aware of any early repayment clauses and to make sure that the bounce back is beneficial to them. So they've now got the same vehicle, but it's just on a different finance package. And like I said earlier, with the CBIL loans as well, if you have received one of them, then you can refinance that CBIL loan to a bounce back loan so long as it's £50,000 or less. You just need to do it before the 4th of November this year. Right. Somebody's just asked about the levels of the bounce back loan. So basically, the bounce back loans they start at £2,000. So it's 2,000 to 50,000, and they are obviously capped at 50,000, but it will be the lower of 25% of your turnover or 50,000. So to put that simply, if your turnover was, say, 40,000, then the maximum loan you will be able to apply for is 10,000. But yeah, the lowest level is 2,000. So that's that one. Okay, if nobody's got any more questions, then we'll keep on moving on. But if you do think of any questions, then please do email me. Here are my contact details. email address, telephone numbers, mobile number, website. I just want to thank everybody for making the time to attend the webinar today. Obviously, appreciate time is very valuable, and I certainly hope that I've given you plenty of ideas to think about and some options of how we can support you if you want. If you've got any more questions, please feel free to contact me. But before we go, I just wanted to share a parting thought with you. When you show deep empathy towards others, their defensive energy goes down and their positive energy replaces it. That's when you get more creative in solving problems. So let's make sure we approach our cash flow challenges with empathy to get through this difficult time. So finally, just thank you once again. Please stay safe. Enjoy the bank holiday. Apparently we're due to have some incredible weather, both fantastic sunshine and then freezing cold on Sunday. But whatever you do, stay safe, enjoy the bank holiday, and I just ask you, please don't forget to give us your feedback when you exit the webinar. Thank you.